Hello everybody and welcome back to the Grid Watchers podcast. Today we have a very, very special podcast. Myself and Rickson are joined by the 2017 F1 Esports Champion, Brendon Leigh. How are you doing tonight, mate?
Hi, I'm doing decent. Thank you for having me on the podcast.
Great. We've tried to do something different tonight, and getting yourself on is just fantastic. So thank you for joining us tonight. So we're just a casual conversation with Brendon, sort of chill out, and we'll hopefully get some sort of good answers from you. So how's life after winning the F1 Esports?
Well, life is a bit crazy at the moment. Obviously, the one big thing what I got invited from winning the F1 Esports was the first E-Rock event, and that was just out of this world. It was mind blowing to be able to drive real cars, but in general, life is just so crazy at the moment, and I'm just trying to live it while I can because I don't know when this opportunity is going to come again.
Just for the people who don't know, what is E-Rock? What is it? Kind of what did you have to do when you were over there?
So basically, the first E-Rock event was we take simulator drivers. It's very much the same as GT Academy did a couple years back. And put simulator drivers in a real car to see how they'll fare. But also we did a competition on the simulators, specifically on Assetto Corsa, and then some races in the real life car as well, and compare what drivers were fastest, and the fastest driver got put into the Nations Cup against the real life drivers.
Oh, so that's okay. So that sounds pretty sick, to be honest. And kind of leading on from that, obviously you were driving real life cars there. So considering, I'm pretty sure before, I'm not sure if this is 100% true, but I think they said that you couldn't actually drive a car before you did that. So that was your first ever time driving a real life car.
Yeah, I can confirm that. I don't have a driver's license. I've never driven a car before that event. So that was literally just a testament to how accurate simulators are these days, to be able to only drive a simulator throughout your life and jump in a real car and be able to perform at that sort of level. And it does so testament to how detailed simulators are.
Yeah, so that's absolutely crazy, to be honest. And true, I'm trying to think kind of, for me anyway, when I first started driving, I was proper shaky. Like, I know it's different when you're on a circuit to when you're on the real roads, but I mean, it's got to take some crazy amount of skill to be able to, even though simulators are really good and they're so close to real life, they're not exactly the real thing. And to be able to jump from one to the other is pretty mental.
Yeah, and the first thing I noticed when I got in the real car was just how much of a weight transfer you feel on the car and how much you actually feel the brakes and the tyres load up. In the simulator, you don't get that sensation. You're just sat in a static chair or rig, whatever you're playing in. In the real car, you're sat there being thrown left to right in the seat. You're feeling the car grip up, it's sliding, and it's just on a different level. And to be able to, especially in the Race of Champions, because obviously the track's about 7 meters wide, it's not exactly like Silverstone wide. If you make a tiny error there, you're in a barrier, and it was quite nerve-wracking knowing that the first time you've driven a car and you're sat that close to a barrier going that fast. It was quite fun.
Yeah, it definitely sounds it from what we saw pictures and video-wise. It looked like a great laugh, and we'd love to do something like that one day. And you've won the esports title. Are you planning on going further into esports? Are you planning to do any more sort of sim-related stuff in the future?
I think obviously my main objective is to keep in the F1 Esports series.
Yep.
But there are definitely events like E-Rock again. If that pops up and I get invited to it again, I'm definitely doing that. And I quite like endurance racing, and I've been looking at a lot of iRacing endurance racing recently. So I'll definitely be trying to branch out into other simulators.
Yeah, iRacing, one of the big ones that's going on at the moment. So how difficult is it to be sort of a top driver? Is it years of practice, or is it more? How do you sort of mentally get in the zone and just do it, sort of thing?
Well, for me, I've been competing on a competitive level since F1 2014, but I think it more comes down from your mentality of it, because everybody can get within a second of the fastest times if they want to put the effort in, but it's down to that last second of, okay, I'm going to fully commit to this turn. I'm going to fully commit to this braking zone. And you have to have complete trust in yourself and your and your equipment that you're never going to spin, you're never going to make a mistake. So it all comes down to that final second of your mentality and your confidence in your own ability. So that's that, for me anyway. That's what separates the very best from the people who are about second, 2 seconds off the pace.
Yeah, and that's quite similar to kind of real life. You know, that's what makes really good F1 drivers, for example. You know, they trust the car, they trust their their brain, they know when they're going to brake, they trust that it's not going to fail, and it's mental. That I mean, I've never been on a real life sim, but you know, like a proper fully blown one that's thousands of pounds worth of kit. But do you think that, like, especially in nowadays anyway, there's a big push for esports, especially in racing games. Do you think that, let's say you're a 14-year-old kid and you want to be a racing driver one day, do you personally think that Sims is the best way to start?
Yeah, 100%. It can cost up to, I think the figure is something like 200,000 to do international karting for a year. Think of that as a 14-year-old karting driver. 200,000 to do a season, and a top end simulator might cost 5,000. Most simulators cost about 500 to build and to have in your bedroom. So if you think about it, we're learning exactly the same racecraft as they're learning in karting, but doing it a hell of a lot cheaper. Sure, we don't have the same experience of real life and feeling the G-force, but we can learn that anyway. We can get fit for that in the gym. We can learn that as soon as we get in the car. But we learn exactly the same racecraft. So for any junior driver coming up through the ranks, I will say to them, always get yourself on a simulator, because although you can't test every single day in a real car, you could test every single day in a simulator at zero cost.
Do you think we'd one day see an esports sort of champion in top tier racing in real life?
Oh, we've already got them. Take Jan Mardenborough, for example. He won GT Academy a while back, and he raced at Le Mans. I think he got a podium in Le Mans. He's doing exceptionally well for him. He's racing at the very top of GT competitions at this moment, GT car competitions, and he's doing so well. And there's so many talents in sim racing what are about to break through and make it into real life.
Yeah, so obviously talent kind of left, right, and centre, and you did mention about getting fit and how that's the only main thing that really real life racing drivers who have done karting will have over sim drivers. And I know you mentioned to me when we had a chat a couple of months ago that you've got yourself a personal trainer, and obviously you're in the gym now, and I'm not sure what you're moving on to next, but it seems like you're really focused on losing some weight and like lowering the pounds, and I'm not sure what obviously you want to do next, whether it's real life or sim, but definitely seems like it's working for you, because the screenshots and images we saw from Codemasters a few weeks ago, you're looking in quite sharp shape, mate, to be honest. So has that been one of the hardest things for you, going to the gym?
I think mentally it's been one of the most difficult, yeah, because it's easy to sit there and go to the gym for an hour a day, but not push yourself. It's easy to walk in a running machine for an hour and not really push yourself. But because Esports Plus Cars had their own personal trainer and mind coach, etc., he's been helping me out and pushing myself to my absolute limit and helping me lose weight as quick as possible. So he's always constantly pushing myself as far as I can, and mentally it's quite difficult to keep on finding that extra 2%. So for me, that's always been the difficulty, but it's the most rewarding thing at the end of the day when you could barely walk through the door when you get home. That's the most rewarding bit.
Yeah, and you mentioned there you've got a mind coach. Do you want to just kind of expand on what he actually does?
Yeah, so like I touched on a second ago, Esports Plus Cars have their own fitness coach and mind coach. What he primarily does is make sure we're in the best frame of mind. So we're always thinking, taking a positive, and we've always got a full focus on what we're doing and zero distraction around us. If you look at real life drivers, take Formula One, for example, they always have somebody with them to help them focus before a race. They always have people there to make sure that nothing's nagging in the back of their mind before a race, and that's exactly what his job does. And he's worked in Formula One before. He worked with David Coulthard, Sergio Perez, and the list goes on. And he's one of the best in the world at what he does, and so I'm so grateful to work with him.
Yeah, so is he? I mean, I'm not trying to cause a stir, but I'm at the finals anyway for esports. You were definitely possibly at your most cockiest, and we know that's kind of how spirited you are. But has this mind coach kind of warned you about being a bit too cocky, or is that just part of you, and you think that's going to be kind of your thing going forward?
Well, I don't think I personally was cocky, but the thing is, when you're racing and when you're in that high level competition, if you're sat there thinking that, oh, I'm the third best in the world, you're never going to win. You have to go there and not care what anybody else thinks about you. You have to go there, slam your fist on the table effectively, and say, I'm here to win. And when I'm racing, I don't care if there's a camera pointing at me. I'm going to do what I think is best for me. And if that is waving my hand about, I don't really care, because that's what my emotion is at the time. And I think it's so easy for a TV camera and presenters to mislead people on what my true emotion was. If the people who actually spoke to me behind the scenes actually came out and spoke publicly, it would be a completely different story.
Was it all okay afterwards?
I was just about to
with
say.
the other drivers, or was it still a bit of beef between you after the final?
Obviously, there was 20 disappointed drivers until the podium got announced, but obviously 19 disappointed drivers leaving the racetrack that day. There was always a bit of tension. There was a few drivers what came up and congratulated me, like Jemba Labassi and a lot of people like that, and I respect them hugely for that. There were some drivers what still just stay quiet and they don't like talking about the esports event because some things didn't go their way. But obviously, the big one was Sven when he hit me on lap 11. That got a bit tense when we were sat in the same room as each other after.
But have you managed to sort things out with Sven, or is it still a bit shaky? Because I would guarantee that you'll definitely be. I mean, it could even be F1 again, but you'll definitely be racing again somewhere, and you'll have to speak to each other. So are you two cool, or is it still a bit awkward?
I think there's always a bit of natural tension between people who are racing at that level, but I think considering what's happened, we're fairly not angry at each other anymore. We're sort of just respect for each other, and we just don't talk much anymore. But we're just more respectful of each other and make sure we don't get in each other's heads that way.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the right way to kind of keep almost friendships, because after something like that, you've met a load of new people who I think if you didn't do it, or if you didn't win or whatever, it wouldn't be the same. And I think it's good that you've come away from it and you're kind of on the right track to actually be quite a serious sim/real life racer. So it's really good to know that you kind of fix those nearly completely burnt down bridges. But it's they definitely seem like a nice bunch of guys. Obviously, Chuck, me and you went to the semi-finals in London, and although we didn't get to talk to very many people there because of random people saying that we can't go to certain places on the on the night, which was a bit of a shame. But I mean, I'm not sure if you've got anything else, Chuck, but for the in terms of the semi-finals, I mean, that was an absolute huge event, bringing the F1, our little small group of people who race to television. And kind of backstage, was there a lot of planning that was behind that? Was it like, oh, Brendon, we need you to stand here for this bit, or we need you to do this here? And if it was like that, how did you find that?
Yeah, the day before the event, I think we arrived on the Monday, raced on the Tuesday, I think it was, for the semi-final that was. We had to go in, get a photo taken, and do some contract stuff, get told what we're meant to be doing. And walking into that environment, obviously, before the esports, I was quite, I think, shy to show my name and my face around the community. I was quite, if I'm honest, quite shy about that. So to get thrown into that environment with a TV and effectively nothing to hide behind anymore, it did make me grow up a lot and change my mindset a lot in terms of what I was doing. So it was good, positive in that way. But to get thrown into that environment, massive TV, presenters questioning you, it was such a surreal experience. And I think a lot of people commented on it during my first interview before the first race at Silverstone. It was a bit embarrassing to look back at, but I learned a lot from that interview.
Yeah, I mean, that's your first time on telly. I think anybody would be nervous, and especially because going into it, the way that you won that first race was so far, it kind of puts an even bigger light on you, and you're kind of expected to do well in every single race from there on out. But obviously you did prove it because you won the whole thing. But yeah, I was going to mention that first bit, and you definitely did come across as shy. But I've got to say now you definitely come out of your shell a whole lot more. So it's all positives really.
It didn't really help the fact that my interview, I was literally the only person from my first heat, heat one, what had to do the interview. So literally, as soon as I got off the camera, it wouldn't have been seen on TV or anything, but I literally had to run up the stairs, and you know how we had to do that out intro thing where we walk out during the middle of the stage and between the rigs. Yeah. Literally had to run up. Okay, Brendon, you're going now.
It was... so you had no time to have a quick breather and prep yourself.
Yeah, exactly, and it was lucky I was on the front row, what meant I could sit in my rig for a little while everyone else was doing their intros. But yeah, it was quite touch and go at that point.
Yeah, it seems. Yeah. Do you think you've grown as a person since the esports event?
Yeah, massively. Before the esports event, if I'm honest, I was a bit more immature, a bit more of not a nice person. Since the esports event, I've grown up a lot, mentality, especially in the racing. Before, if you look at my AOR results, debatably I was one of the quickest over a lap, but I could never put it together consistently.
You just crashed all the time, yeah.
Yeah, I can't deny it. Like, my single lap pace was very good, but I was constantly inconsistent in the race, making small mistakes. When I did get the race hooked up, I was winning by like 9-8 seconds constantly when I did get my race hooked up. But it was just the races what I didn't get hooked up just went so bad because my mentality was so weak at that point. Of if I make one mistake, I start crumbling and make 10 more mistakes in the same race. But now I've really fixed that, and you could see it from the results. I won 4 out of the 5 races that I entered.
Yeah, no, definitely. You know, dominant display when you were competing, and I did see you've had a couple of photos with Codemasters recently. Are you having much involvement with developing the 2018 game at all?
No, none at all. I'd like to, because that'd be a great advantage, but I doubt it's going to happen because they know. If like an esports driver who just won the last season sat there rocked up testing, it'll be quite an advantage to say the least.
Saw those images. Can you tell us anything about your possible? You know, are you in the game? Have you had a head scan, or were you just there to maybe test the new game? Can you tell us anything about that? I'm guessing not, but it's worth a try.
So obviously part of my prize was to win. Well, winning the F1 Esports, part of my prize was to be in the next game. So obviously I had to get my head scan done for that, and it was mainly just doing some filming, nothing major. It was just doing a little bit of filming for Codemasters. And yeah, it was. I didn't get played a new game, sadly. I tried, I asked, but that was a bit too secretive.
I mean, it would probably be broken anyway, so I doubt you would get very far. Do about 2 laps and you'd probably crash, or the game would crash. Sorry. But yeah, so I just want to. I really want to kind of find out some of the juicy stuff. So with this head scan, do you know where it's going to be used in the game? Are you going to be like one of the mock drivers for like Grand Prix mode, or do you know any details yet?
I personally don't know many details about it. It'll be really cool if I could be my own self in career mode. That'd be really cool. Oh. And in the F1 Esports, like, I don't know if you noticed in the F1 Esports how, instead of having our own driver and our own helmet, we had the real life drivers. So, for example, I had Kliat's helmet and his flag. It'd be so cool if everybody else had to have their drivers and I was sat there with my own helmet and my own design smiling. But we'll have to see what happens at that point. I don't know much information about it.
Right. Is it? If you look at the community of F1, are there any? Who would you sort of say is the next sort of up and best coming thing in the F1 community who could maybe challenge you, or potentially in the future challenge for the title in F1 Esports?
I think the biggest up-and-coming person is Bailey, who I think races in F3 or F4 in AOR. I think he's like 11 or 12 years old, and he's only like a second and a half off me on most tracks, and that's phenomenal. And the fact that a 11, 12-year-old can have the brain functionality to turn a wheel at that space and in that pace, in terms of braking, acceleration, have that sort of throttle control at that age is just phenomenal in my opinion. So he's definitely one to watch when he's old enough to enter the F1 Esports, if he does want to enter, that is. But yeah, there's such a tight spread of like talent in the F1 Esports like community. People who are wanting to get into it. It's so hard to say who's going to be the next up and coming person. It's all down to the mindset.
Yeah, I'm not sure who we spoke to before, but I do remember it might not have been on the podcast, but I was speaking to somebody before about who they thought was kind of the next best thing, and a lot of people do mention that Bailey is like absolutely mental. Like he's so good for how old he is, and I think when I was about 12, I didn't even know what fucking F1 was. So it's being that young and being that good is absolutely mental. So yeah, I've definitely got to agree with you there. I mean, if he's that young and can turn a wheel and know when the apex is coming up and can nail his braking points, he's got to be some kind of special talent. So it's good to see that there's still. I mean, obviously there's a lot of young kids who play the game, but a lot of them don't take it as seriously as I'm guessing some of the other guys do. And it's good to see as well that he's keeping his head down and not causing too much trouble, because you don't want to build a bad name for yourself.
He's not actually allowed on Twitter, Rickson. His dad runs his account.
So
that is why he's nice and calm on Twitter.
Because it's his dad.
But yeah, no, I think definitely he's one to watch, definitely.
So, I'm not sure if you've got anything else that isn't from Twitter, but we have got a lot of Twitter questions to get through, and we're about 20 minutes in. So, Chick, if you've got nothing else to ask...
no, yeah, we'll just go straight to the Twitter questions. Yeah, that's fine, yeah.
Awesome. So, I guess since I've got my Twitter feed up now, I'll start, Brendon. So we've got Ginger Andy F1, who I believe is a PS4 commentator for AOR. He's asking, having won the VIP tickets through F1 Esports, what made you to choose Canada?
Well, obviously the flights and all that are free, so I don't know the next time I'm going to be able to go to Canada for free. It's a really cool track, I've been told by people who've worked in F1 before. Cool track, cool city. Plus, like compared to most of the other circuits I wanted to go to, in Canada they speak English. If I was to go to Monaco, I'm not sure everybody would speak English, and if I was to go to different places like Hungary, if you get what I mean by that. So it sort of has that accessibility to talk to everybody. Plus, I know the food over there is not going to be completely weird to me. So it's not gonna throw my gut about like it did in Saudi Arabia.
Oh God, yeah. So it's always good, but it is surprising that you didn't choose like a Monaco or a Baku, because they're amazing tracks, and sure, like for me anyway.
So did you say Baku's a great track?
Yeah. Mate, have you
seen... It's a cool city. It's a cool city.
Have you seen what kind of things they host there around Grand Prix weekend? Do you want to be there for like the music nice and stuff? You know, it's not just about the racing. So I'm going to get stabbed down for that on Twitter. It's not
like I completely agree, and that's why I didn't go to Monaco, because like you're going to end up spending like £500 just to buy a sandwich in Monaco, and I don't particularly want to start paying that amount. So apart from the racing, everybody I've spoken to said it's really cramped, it's just so rushed, and although you get to see a car really close, there isn't really much exciting stuff that goes on in the race. It's pretty much, the pit stops phase is happening. Seb is only taking Raikkonen again, it's fine.
Yeah.
It was in Canada, you get a chance to see racing. Plus the lower Formula cars are going there a lot this year, and you get a lot of racing on the build up to it.
Yeah, Canada always throws up a good race as well, whatever the conditions there in Montreal. Just looking at some other questions we got. Are you signing up for the new AOR season by chance?
Yeah, I am. I've already done my time trial lap, so I just need to upload them to the website. But yeah, definitely signing up.
Is that on Xbox or?
Oh, I'm signing up on the PC platform.
PC. Yeah.
Do you find there's more competition on the PC over other consoles?
For me, I think the PC has the most competitive split out of all of them. Because if you look at it, we have something like last season, we had something like 10 esports drivers. And out of those 10, they're all super quick. It's ridiculous how quick they were. And everyone's practicing like it is the F1 Esports. And they're putting, most people like Danny, he said he's putting like 20, 30 hours a week in. I'm sat there going, I just can't be bothered. And, but yeah, it's good fun. And not to take anything away from the other splits, but I just think if you look at the Xbox split, Sully is very quick. And if you just look at the results, people after Sully, it's not. The racing's been good in Xbox, but as soon as you get from P2 to P1, Sully's just taken off in the distance, haven't they?
Yeah, he's pretty quick. From of course, me and Rickson do commentate over him quite a bit in STS F1.
Yeah,
he's
I
a
think
phenomenal driver.
He's absolutely mental.
I do think, though, if he came over to PC, he would get a bit more of a wake-up call, so to speak.
Oh, you hear that? You hear that, Sully? He's calling you out if you're watching.
No, it's not that Sully's a bad driver. I'm not saying that he doesn't deserve anything. I think if he came over to PC, though, whereas like maybe 2 or 3 drivers who can challenge him in qualifying on Xbox, we have 10 or what can qualify above people. And it's the pressure's just at a different level.
And has that? I know this isn't off Twitter, but just kind of leading off that question. Sorry, has. Obviously, after the esports final, there was a lot of kind of the drivers that were there have now moved to AOR on PC. Has that obviously that will have changed your pace, but has that made you a better or even better since you've got kind of harder people around you?
Yeah, you have to race against the best to continue to grow yourself. If you're just sat there, and if I was just sandbag and sign up to Formula F3, I mean, it's not really going to help me in any way possible. So you have to race against the best people to improve yourself.
Do you feel sort of being an F1 Esports Champion? Do you feel any sort of role model-esque feeling being at the top? And a lot of people, I can imagine, trying to follow you and what you do. Do you feel you've got some pressure there or not?
I think, of course, from the outside there's a bit of pressure, but to be honest, when I'm getting ready for a race or during a race, I don't really think about anybody else but myself in the race, so I don't really feel any extra pressure. The only downside of being esports champion is everybody wants to battle you so much. Everyone wants to overtake you, even if it's not good for their own race. They all want to battle you just to say they battled and overtook the F1 Esports Champion.
Yeah, I can imagine the bragging rights.
It's good fun, but it's not good for my race.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah. And with your original Xbox name, Dizzy Cupid, what was the behind that? Was it just random, or does it? What was behind the name?
The story behind that was when you sign up to Xbox Live, you get a gamer tag given to you by Xbox, just random one. I picked Dizzy Cupid, and I'm too boring and generic to be able to think of a better name to change into until I thought of, let's copy Martin and have my second name. But yeah, that's where that originally came from. It sort of just stuck, as I had it for like a year or something like that, and it just stuck, to be honest.
I see. It makes sense.
So, sorry, changing gears. I've just literally had quite a juicy question come in through DM. So they're asking, Brendon, kind of, you've been in a few different teams, obviously ESR and then BAM and then obviously esports and cars, who you're with now. Obviously, moving teams, especially now you're esports champion, is quite a big thing. Obviously, there must be quite a few people who want you. And is there any, is esports and cars where you want to be, or do you want to keep going up from here and go higher and maybe join Chem with G2?
Well, I personally think esports plus cars is the highest at the moment, because sure, you can have Alonso in your team, but he's not really involved in a team. His PR manager's involved in a team, managing it on Twitter, if we're honest here. So it's cool to have Alonso managing the team, but it's not really cool if you don't have the results. And if you look at the results page on esports plus cars, it's a lot of ones. So that, I think esports plus cars is the pinnacle at the moment in terms of what I'm doing.
Yeah, and so when you were at BAM and kind of things like that, was that kind of a stepping stone then, or when you joined them, was that like a really big thing for you?
Yeah, obviously when I joined them, it was a really big thing. I didn't know what was around the corner. So I joined them maybe a bit too early, in my opinion. I maybe should have waited a bit longer until after the semi-final, but like I said before, I was a bit more immature then. As soon as like a bigger team approached me, I dropped my bags and ran basically, and I somewhat regret that, but it's also been a good learning curve for me.
Yeah, of course, and it's the key thing really. You came away from it. Might not have been the best thing to do, but you've learned from it, and yeah, it's seems like you're definitely moving forward. Yeah, Chick, not if you've got.
I think, yeah, if you haven't got anything, Rick, I think sort of as a final question, Brendon, if you were to give some advice to someone who is quite good at the game and wants to take that next step to becoming an esports driver and maybe a champion, what would that advice be?
Don't beat me. No, but on a serious note, it's keep your head down. I find practice the most boring thing in the world, and I honestly hate doing it. I wish I didn't have to do it, but I do. And it's just about keeping your head down during practice and making sure you finish your race practices and your qualifying practices properly and not start slacking halfway through, because that's where you learn everything. That's where you learn if you can go fast or if you have to save the tyres, etc., etc. So it's all about the practice.
Yeah. And is there anything on the horizon for you competing wise in esports?
Well, obviously, I want to try and do the F1 Esports again this year.
Yeah.
Apart from that, F1 Esports is my main focus. Maybe I'll do some small, pop-up events, what I like to call them, like E-Rock again if I get invited. But apart from that, F1 Esports is my main focus.
I think we've covered a lot of topics, really, Rickson, today with Brendon. I just think thanks for joining us on the podcast tonight, and hopefully you've had a good time. I think hopefully the audience has had a good time as well. And yeah, guys, if you did enjoy, don't forget to smash the like button below. Check out us on iTunes. Check out Rickson and Brendon on Twitter. Brendon, unless you want to say anything right at the end to the audience.
I'd just like to be thankful for the people who are supporting me, especially my support in general has gone massively up since the F1 Esports, and I'm just so grateful for that. I can't really put it into words, but I'm really grateful for that.
Lovely. Cool. Well, that rounds off the podcast for today, guys. Hopefully you've enjoyed something a little bit different today, more of an interview style podcast, but hopefully you've liked it, and we'll see you next week for our Bahrain Grand Prix podcast. So we'll see you then. Good night.